We're about 1 second from starting. 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Transportation Committee. Can you hear me all right? Or is it echoey? No, yes? Okay. I'm Councilwoman Heather Hutt, Chair of this committee, and I'm joined today by council members, Park and Hernandez. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Councilmember Hutt,
Here.
Councilmember Park,
Present.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Present.
Councilmember De Leon, Councilmember Rahman.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, today we have 13 items on the agenda. Before we get to the items, we have amendments on items 5 and items 8, and a technical correction on item 10 that we should read into the record. Madam CLA, please read the amendments and technical corrections into the record.
Okay, for item number 5, we have 8 recommendations that would replace the ones in the Department of Transportation report. Number 1 is instruct DOT to pause further rollout of the Transit Service Assessment, TSA, service plan that are not obligated to be implemented under existing funding agreements consistent with the resources provided in the FY 2024-25 adopted budget. Recommendation number 2 is to instruct DOT to report to Council with an overview of the recommendations from the TSA service plan approved by Council in 2018 that have been implemented to date, the recommendations that have not been implemented that will be paused and reconsidered in a revised TSA, and the criteria that will be used to analyze these outstanding commitments in the forthcoming revised TSA. Recommendation 3 is instruct LADOT to initiate a revised TSA to identify potential service changes that would align operational expenses to the reliable revenue forecasted while still providing a core well-functioning service. The revised TSA should take into account the Phase 1 route recommendations from the TSA service plan approved by Council in 2018 that have not yet been implemented, the data that identified those communities for expanded service in 2018, the data used to analyze them in the revised TSA, and any available funding that will allow the department to launch these routes if they are identified as priority communities in the revised TSA. Also, current and potential long-term travel changes brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic and related commuting and travel patterns since that time. Also, performance data, rider surveys, adopted guidelines, and performance metrics that the City Council already approved pursuant to Council File 18-0244, as well as operational conditions imposed by the utilization of battery electric buses, BEBs. Also, the consideration of existing and new services or service partnerships with other agencies that provide public transit to cultural and tourist destinations on an ongoing basis, and for upcoming major events like the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Olympics and Paralympic Games. And also sponsorship opportunities, public-private partnerships, and other service provision subsidization methods as appropriate for different services and service routes. Number 4, instruct DOT to report on the implementation of pre-existing dash fares set to begin on January 1st, 2025, and any recommendations to revise the fare amount. Recommendation 5, instruct DOT with the assistance of the CAO to identify new funding sources for transit services and transit capital necessary to electrify the transit fleet and meet useful life benchmarks. Recommendation 6, instruct LADOT with the assistance of the CAA to identify additional cost savings from Proposition A. Recommendation 7, instruct DOT to report in 6 months with a status report on the effort to undertake the new TSA. And lastly, recommendation 8, instruct DOT to report back in 30 days with options for providing interim transit service, including but not limited to piloting certain days or hours in the area of the future Boyle Heights West Dash while the updated TSA is being conducted. So that's for item 5 on the agenda. For item 8, I'd like to replace the instructions with the following slightly modified language in the motion. that would state, I move that the Budget, Finance, and Innovation Committee report on the mayor's proposed budget for 2024-25 be amended to 1, instruct the CAO to report to the Transportation Committee for committee and council approval prior to any council authorization of expenditures, including loans or changes thereof for the Prop A Local Transit Assistance Fund, the Proposition C Anti-Gridlock Transit Assistance Fund, the Measure R Traffic Relief and Rail Expansion Ordinance, Measure M, the Los Angeles County Traffic Improvement Plan, and the Special Parking Revenue Fund as required by the Council Committee Structure Resolution, which does not include the financial status reports and the construction project report. Number 2, instruct the CAO to remove transportation-related projects from this CPR, the Construction Projects Report, and transmit them separately for Transportation Committee and Budget, Finance, and Innovation Committee consideration. And 3, instruct the City Clerk to ensure that all referrals to the Transportation Committee are made pursuant to the Council Committee Structure Resolution as further defined above. And then for item 10, we just have a technical change on page 5 of the report to expand the title for the Los Angeles River project to also include the other project title, which is the Los Angeles Bikeways, Riverways, and Active Valley Equity Segment 7, also known as LA Brave 7. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Now that we read the amendments, let's begin by taking public comment. Mr. Clerk, please provide the public comment instructions.
Very good. Those of public who wish to make public comment on any item on the transportation agenda can register to do so at the kiosk in the corner over there. Sergeant Arms will assist you. You have 1 minute for one item, multiple items, that's 2 or more, 2 minutes. And general public comment, 1 minute, so there's no more than 3 minutes per speaker maximum.
Thank you. Hakeem, will you conduct public comment and begin?
Sure. We have 2 persons signed up for public comment. The first is Daniel Gus. No Daniel Gus. The second name that I have is Terrence Daniels. Terrence Daniels.
We're still going through names. Just a moment. We're giving folks an opportunity.
I don't see any more names on the queue. If you wanted to do public comment, please step to the podium and line up here.
They didn't come through.
Just stand up to the podium. Please state your name and the items you wish to speak on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. I'd like to speak on 5, 6, 7, 12. I'd like to speak on everything, but I can't. And public comment.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, thank you. I have this notice that I got from LADOT. Your Title VI rights. But what's really interesting is the dot, the logo. It's all about the logo sometimes. See that? LA covers the D, which means it's not LaDOT, it's OT, because the LA and the D cancel each other out. So it's actually OT.
I hate it.
It's a problem because
What item are you speaking on?
I'm speaking on public comment.
Which item are you speaking on?
I'm speaking on whichever item you want. I could speak on number 7 because your Department of Transportation. It says LADOT. And this is not the same LADOT. This is different. You have a different you have 2 different LADOTs on bus stops. You have an LADOT in California.
Sir, the logo is not up for debate today. You want to stick to the topic of the number 7?
I'm speaking.
Or go into general public comment?
Your Department of Transportation, okay, is LADOT.
Okay, so that item is not up for discussion. You have general public comment, or you can
It's
extend your
on
time.
the agenda. Why is it not up for discussion? It's the electrification of
Okay, sir, that's the end of your
please.
time. Thank you. Oh, speak.
What are we doing here?
Okay, so I'm asking. It's the logos. The logos are messed up. you have two different signs on a bus stop. You have a sign that says LADOT in blue letters, and then you have a sign that says LADOT, but the letters are all sliced up. So it doesn't say LADOT. It actually says LaDOT. And then you have buses, they say LaDOT Transit in small letters. Well, LaDOT Transit is Los Angeles Department of Transportation Transit. That doesn't make sense either. So I'd ask the question, who's in charge? But I'm afraid to get an answer on that because your budget is way over. You mentioned Prop A, Prop C, Measure R, and Measure M. They're stealing money. Measure R and Measure M, you've been stealing taxpayers' funds for about 15 years. When those two items were passed,
Excuse me, timer. Add one more minute because of the confusion in the conversation. Go ahead, Mr. Sack.
Measure R and Measure M were passed, the budget was like $2 million. Measure R was up to $30 million for 40 years, or $40 million for 30 years. And then Measure M was going to be grandfathered in on top. So where is the money going? The streets are a disaster. The bus-only lane on Wilshire Boulevard, if you wanted to, you could take a bus only and you wouldn't have to worry about getting on any roller coaster because you could go up and down for 15 miles. It's ridiculous. You're talking about Prop A status. What is the status? Metro doesn't have any more open meetings. What the hell's going on at Metro? Is it the corporation or is it the association? They're two different items.
Thank you, Mr.
And they even say the same thing on the buses.
Speaker, your time is up.
For all the items?
Yes.
Is that 3 minutes?
It was actually 4. Mm-hmm.
Holy cow.
Thank you.
All right. Next up. Is there anyone else for public comment? Please step to the podium, state your name and the items you wish to speak on.
Mike Greenspan, all items and general public comment.
3 minutes.
Okay. Now, first of all, I want to thank Unisys for coming here and making the quorum. Had it been Cedillo, he'd be out getting his dick wet. So I want to thank the people who show up for the meetings. We have a reappointment, and I hope that this reappointment is a good reappointment because you never know. We've had appointments in LA that have been how John Walsh said it years ago. The person had kiddie porn, and that was a mayoral appointment. I hope we don't have that. Now, the other thing, I hope we don't have an Alatorre type. Well, who's Alatorre? Oh, he's been on the RTD, the Metro, and some other construction committee. And he would go, he's a former council member, former assembly member, and he would go to the Metro meetings with $100 bills stuffed in his pocket. Isn't that wonderful for LA for you to send people like that to the board? So be careful in who you appoint so we don't have criminals. Bad enough Englander, Weezer, et cetera. Now, we have, you're talking about electrification issues. One thing we need to talk about when we talk about the electric thing, those batteries are made in countries that use child labor, in case you didn't know it. So we're trying to be politically correct, but now we're promoting child labor. Isn't that wonderful? The greatest thing we've had since Atlanta in 1913 with the Leo Frank family and their pencil factory that hired 13-year-old Mary Fagan. So I really think we should have places we do business with which don't employ child labor. Now we got these special parking districts. Tracy Beach has one in her District 11, the mayor of NIMBYville. Yaroslavsky's got one in her district. The Princess has to have that. And then we've got one over there. Where is it? Is it split up between 5 and 13? Oh, no, not that one. We already mentioned that one. Oh, District 4, Cunt Ramen Noodle. You have to pay to park. How wonderful. Isn't that? Now, we need to talk about something else, and that is it's time to eliminate fares on Metro and the other places. You come to us every so often, increasing our sales tax for money to fund your projects. Isn't it time that for what we paid through all these years, we actually get rid of the fares? It will speed up the bus times. It'll do a lot. And what's so bad about the idea? We just slide a little extra eighth of a cent on your sales tax. Oh, and the safety of the bus drivers. I got a wonderful idea being from Florida. Have them carry guns. That works. That'll really work. That'll stop a lot of criminals.
Thank you. Is there anyone else available for public comment? Please come to the podium, state your name and the items you wish to speak on.
Don't you have the speaker list?
You're not.
What? Why am I not on the list?
Your name and the items you would like to speak on.
What? Am I on the list or not?
It's not functioning at the moment.
Wow. Look at that, Tracy Park, neat Tracy Beach.
Are you speaking at general
didn't see
public
that.
comment right
Under
now?
your name.
Because your
Yeah,
time is
something.
running.
I don't understand. Is there a problem with your kiosk? Is it not working? I signed up for your meeting 3 hours ago. I signed up again. And at the special meeting today, right, Tracy? When you sat there and did nothing, my name disappeared. So is there a problem? Do you see anything that says GOAT on your speaker list?
No.
Okay.
Sir,
Why not?
there's no speaker list. It's not working. We don't know. Do you have
Oh,
some
well,
items that you would like to talk about?
so
Then we would like to use your
Is
time for
this-
that.
Is this
Otherwise, your
limited?
time is clicking.
Is this limited to this meeting, or was that malfunction happening at your regular and special council meeting? Is it happening downstairs where I'm signed up? Is it a system-wide failure? Because you see, you counsel criminals, and that's what you are. Never correct yourselves. Doesn't matter if anybody steals or misuses their office holder accounts or commits a crime. You guys will protect each other to the bitter end like Jose Huizar.
Your general public comment
Because
is expired.
that's what Jose
Are you going to
Huizar
speak
did.
on the items on the
Yes,
agenda?
but
Then
isn't
speak
that,
on the items of the agenda
well, that
now
is the
because you're.
item. This is all about the
That's not
legality
the
of
item.
your item.
Please speak
This
on
is
the item,
about
Mr.
legality. Will
Spindler.
you tell them, for once, to be quiet and just listen? I watched Jose Huizar as a disabled child.
You're not speaking on
Get
any of the
sentenced.
agenda items. Your time is
But one
expired.
of your
Thank you so
colleagues
much.
got sentenced to
Thank you.
13
Your time
years.
is up. Is there anyone else that's here
He's
to speak
going
on
to
public
prison
comment?
for 13.
Mr. Spindler, your time is up. You're off of topic.
You know why? You know why he's not going to raise his child?
Your time is. Could you please escort him out?
Relied on the advice of the
Madam Clerk.
attorney. He advised. He was advised by the city.
This closes public comment.
Interrupting the meeting.
Never got out.
Pursuant to council
You are
rules, you're out of order
You are-
and you're going to have to leave this meeting.
He never got out.
Thank you for your time.
Sergeant, he's ejected.
Never got Tracy. He never got out.
Do we have any other members
Could have had outside counsel.
that would like to speak? No?
You know, do you think it's fair that he goes to prison for 13 years? Jesus Christ didn't go to prison for 13 years. Okay? He's going to never raise his child. His disabled child.
Now that we've concluded the public comment section, I'd like to officially close public comment and let's jump onto our agenda. Thank you so much. I'd like to take up non-controversial items. Those items would actually be items 1 through 11 and number 13. Does any member wish to discuss items 1 through 11 and number 13? Colleagues? Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry. Mr. Clerk, can you please read them,
Okay.
items 1 through 11 and number 13?
Okay, number one is communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Ms. Celica Talbot to the Board of Transportation Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2029. Item number two, Board of Transportation Commissioners report and resolution relative to the consolidation and conversion of temporary preferential parking district number 115 into preferential parking district number 215 and amendments of boundaries in the greater Wilshire Park neighborhood of Council Districts 5 and 13. Item three, Board of Transportation Commissioners report and resolution relative to the establishment of preferential parking district number 316 in the Delray neighborhood of Council District 11. Item four, Board of Transportation Commissioners report and resolution relative to the establishment of preferential parking district 319 in the Van Nuys Historic Preservation Ordinance Zone south of Van Owen Street in Council Districts 2 and 6. Item number five, this matter was continued from April 17, 2024. LA Department of Transportation report relative to Proposition A status and forecast for transit services. Item 6, LADOT report relative to establishing a parking meter zone for paid parking on Canyon Lake Drive between Arrowhead Drive and Mulholland Highway adjacent to Lake Hollywood Park. Item 7, motion, Raman Hutt, relative to available funding programs for the electrification of the Los Angeles Department of Transportation's bus fleet. Item 8, motion, Hutt Park, relative to Transportation Committee jurisdiction in connection with transportation grant funds. This matter has been also referred to the Budget, Finance, and Innovation Committee. Item number 9, motion, Padilla Raman, relative to initiating a review of city-owned parking lots located in the Van Nuys area to determine suitability for development of affordable and/or supportive housing and replacement parking in conformance with the city's asset management evaluation framework and affordable housing opportunity site review process. Item 10, LADOT report relative to authority to submit grant applications to the State of California Department of Transportation to compete for the Active Transportation Program Cycle 7 call for projects. Item 11, LADOT report relative to proposed Second Amendment to contract number C-135121 with Tool Design Group, LLC for the completion of the West Side Mobility Project. Okay. And we're skipping for item 12.
13.
So item 13, LADOT report relative to proposed prioritization methodology for speed humps and speed tables around schools.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Does any member wish to discuss items 1 through 11 and 13?
Councilwoman, I just have a question for number 13, please.
Certainly. Do you need DOT?
Yes.
DOT, can you come to the table, please, for item number 13?
Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to hear from LADOT about how they plan to weigh in on council office's priorities for speed humps around schools if key schools aren't ranking well according to this revised priority list. I'm a bit worried that equity is not weighted as highly as other indicators on this list, and I want to make sure that we prioritize the right schools. We're trying to make this a proactive measure instead of a reactive one, and currently, as it is written, it is reactive because of the way it pushes on previous crash. It works on previous crash incidents over equity.
Thank you, Council Member, for the question. If I understand it correctly, you want to better understand how we plan to apply the criteria in order to identify an equitable way of identifying schools.
Yes, kind of. I want to know how we're going to be using equity in a higher, heavier weighted way than we're using it now.
Great, thank you. I'll ask Carlos Rios to address that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll defer this question to Chris Ryder, who's helping with our methodology.
Okay, can you make sure the light's on, please, on the mic?
There we go.
Great, thank you.
Right. Hi, Chris Ryder. I work in our Vision Zero group, but I was assisting on this. We came up with the methodology, and for the equity weight, we kind of looked at what we had done in the previous methodology. That was 10%, and also based on what we've done in our previous safety work, we wanted to emphasize that safety component. We're definitely open to reweighting if that's something that council is interested in doing, and moving that equity score higher. We don't necessarily know what the impact of that will be, as we haven't run the methodology to look at the schools. So we don't necessarily know which schools will rank higher based on changing that specific weight.
Great, thank you. What are the categories with the heaviest weight right now?
Let's see.
Thank you.
Yes. So currently it's weighted so that safety is 65%. Lack of infrastructure, which is mostly the presence of sidewalks or lack of sidewalks on the route to school, is weighted at 15%. Equity is weighted at 10%. And then mode split, which is the percent of students for that school that are walking, biking to school, is weighted at 10%.
Great, thank you. I do think that we should reweigh some of these. I think equity needs to be at a higher level. I will say that I have streets in my district, which is Cypress Park Avenue, where I constantly get sent videos of accidents that happen there because of a lack of safe street infrastructure. But when we look at the data of LAPD, there isn't that many accidents that are recorded. So the data isn't there to back up the installation of additional safe street infrastructure. And so looking at the fact that safety is weighed so heavily, and part of that is the collisions that have occurred there, I think that there's a gap there that could be missing, for example, like on Cypress Park Avenue. And so I would hope that you all could come back to us, or if I need to do a motion, but I do think equity needs to be weighed heavier in this process.
Councilmember, we're happy to return with the recommendation that takes your concerns into consideration.
Great, thank you so much.
So members, would you like to table this item and come back with an amendment?
If that's okay, Councilmember?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on any of the items 1 through 11 and number 13? Councilmember Park, no? Okay. So then on item 1, I recommend we approve the mayor's recommendation for a member on the commission. On item 2 through 4, I recommend we approve the DOT's recommendation. On item 5, I recommend we approve the recommendations of the chair, which we got the recommendations just a moment ago.
Comment cards?
Well,
We don't do comment cards. We
Where-
do registering at the kiosk.
Yeah, it's not working.
sir, I'm sorry, we officially closed public comment. No, we just asked for anyone who wanted to make a statement during public comment. And it's officially closed. Now we're voting on various items. On item 6, I recommend we note and file the DOT report. On item 7, I recommend we approve the motion. On item 8, I recommend we approve the recommendations of the chair. On item 9, I recommend we approve the motion. On item 10, I recommend we adopt the DOT recommendation with the technical corrections. On item 11, I recommend we adopt the DOT's recommendation. And then on item 13, I recommend we table item 13 and come back at our next meeting with amendment.
Thank you.
Members, on these items, I ask for your aye vote. Mr. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Oh, very good. For these items, Councilmember Hutt,
Aye.
Councilmember Park. Yes. Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Very good. Items 1 through 11 approved as indicated previously. Number 13 is continued. Doesn't require a vote.
Thank you. Let's get moving on to the next item. Mr. Clerk, can you please read item number 12?
Very good. One moment. Item 12, motion Hutt Park relative to an assessment of bus driver safety concerns, safeguards implemented, and recommendations to protect the city's contract bus drivers and the transit riding public.
I have them here. Thank you. I'd like to ask the DOT, LAPD, MV Transportation, and the Teamsters to come to the table, please. Going to skill. Oh. Thank you. I'd like to ask my colleagues if they have any questions or comments for members that are here to have a discussion about bus driver safety. As you're preparing yourself, I have a few. So for DOT, what safety and security measures do we have on the Dash bus system and other contract city bus run routes?
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for giving us an opportunity to address driver safety. First of all, I think highlighting this as an important matter is significant, sends a great message for our bus operators, for our customers, and really highlights what we prioritize as safety on board our buses. Not just for our customers, but for our drivers who every day show up and deliver critical transportation services. So thank you. In response to your question, Chair, we have a number of features on board our buses in addition to training. We have barriers installed. We have a, for lack of a better term, a panic button, and we have a mechanism in place through radios for our bus operators to communicate directly with our dispatch. Looking to Brian to see if there's anything I've missed.
Additionally, we have onboard video cameras that are available that can be accessed remotely as well.
Thank you. Does DOT have an ongoing dialogue with MV Transportation or with Teamsters Local 572 on safety measures and safety training and protocols?
Yes, Brian Lee, Chief of Transit Programs. Staff meets regularly. They have bi-weekly meetings with MV Transportation to go over any items regarding safety, maintenance, bus operator issues, and things like that. In addition, LA DOT is in federal compliance with the FTA in order to meet with the contractor as well as their representatives from the drivers quarterly to go over any major safety issues, and our assistant general manager is part of those meetings as well.
And then when you're saying as well as, are you talking about your meeting with the Teamsters?
We don't. So LADOT actually does not meet with the Teamsters. That is done with MV Transportation, who meets with the Teamsters. We meet directly with MV Transportation and the bus drivers' representation.
Okay. These questions are for LAPD. Does LAPD have an opinion on the current safety of our DAS bus system and other contract city bus run routes?
So LAPD used to have a contract similar to the LA Metro contract, where we were providing enhanced safety presence on certain bus lines that were identified by DOT. That contract ended in 2021. And between 2021 and today, there have been no enhanced communications between DOT and LAPD outside of the regular dispatch system. After the last meeting where the safety concerns for the bus operators were brought up, I reached out to the union leadership to engage them in a conversation as to get what their concerns are, and LADOT reached out to our office to sit down and discuss a preliminary meeting about doing an assessment of the current state of their safety protocols. What we discussed was looking into their safety protocols as far as operators recognizing danger, redoing the de-escalation training that had started prior to 2021, but was not continued by LAPD past 2021. And also looking at our communication infrastructure and protocols for there. We believe that we can take the experiences that we've had, despite the media attention, with successes that we've had with the safety on MTA system, and help out the city family with the safety of the operators for DOT. So those 2 meetings that we had are the preliminary meetings. I brought in my training team to meet with the union leadership, and we're starting to talk about starting to develop the curriculums that we think will help them keep their membership safe, as well as working in partnership with the safety team at DOT to start implementing better communication protocols between the MV Dispatch Center and LAPD's Dispatch Center.
Thank you. I meant to ask a question to DOT when you said panic button, for the lack of a better word. Who's it go to?
Currently, it does not go anywhere. There's a panic button that's pushed, and then it displays a sign around the bus that says "Call 911 emergency," so the public can see and call right away. We are looking into options when that button is pushed, if it can actually communicate to dispatch. So we're exploring that options now, actually.
So it's asking the public to come in and help. Okay. So for MV Transportation and the Teamsters Local 572, can you provide any comments that you may have at this time with respect to evaluating and updating our safety measures and protocols for our drivers and vehicles?
Certainly. My name is Adriana Avila from Teamsters.
Press the button, please. No, thank you.
Thank you. Adriana Avila, President of Teamsters Local 572. And we do have some comments we'd like to make, specifically regarding some of the responses that we've heard today. I heard LADOT say that there's a number of features that have been added in addition to training of our members. And our members to date have reported that there has been no additional safety training. Also, the radios that our members are given on the buses don't work. So it's great to have a radio, but if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't really help them. In addition, thank you for addressing the panic button that does nothing except send an alert to say call 911, hoping somebody calls 911. So while our members are being physically assaulted, one of these things is supposed to be happening. We have absolutely met with LAPD. We've appreciated the time and energy that they've put into the safety of our members. We do have a laundry list of items we think could be instituted or looked into even on a pilot program. But one of our most important comments we want to make here today is we want to be part of the solution. We are here today to be part of the resolution that you are putting forward, and thank you both for putting this forward. We're also asking that there be a timeline implemented as far as when the results of your motion come back. We've just finished waiting 18 months for the last LADOT report to come forward for our members, and we're hoping we can see something within 45 to 60 days. And again, just to underscore the fact that we definitely would like to be part of the conversation, because we are the ones representing our members. We are the ones who hear firsthand about the verbal and physical assaults that go on daily, and we trust ourselves to report on that. And I'll leave it to MV to add any additional comments.
Thank you. Judy Smith, Senior Vice President for MV Transportation. The comments regarding radios being inoperable, that is something I will take up, but I'm not aware that that's been an issue on our routes. We've met with the Teamsters on a few occasions, and I'm just taken aback a little bit, so I'll go back and investigate that as a Senior VP for MV Transportation. As for training, since our last meeting that we had with the city, we had our safety meetings, and our safety blitz discussions were surrounded around de-escalation and safety protocols out there for our drivers. The day of the last meeting, we actually met with DOT, outlined our training, overall training that we do for our drivers that we provided to the city. And as of the month of June, we are continuing our de-escalation training that we've got scheduled the week of June 17th for one division, and the week of June 24th for the other, to ensure that the drivers understand the process of de-escalation, as some of these incidents are surrounded through customer service. from the very beginning when a person enters the vehicle. So we are working really hard to address this, along with the new requirement around just workplace safety, where there's requirement to ensure that our employees are safe and have the proper training, where we're going to do actual role playing and everything. And the union has been invited. An email went out from our director of labor to the union to see if they would like to participate in those meetings, which we did get a yes from 572, so they can see what the training entails. Along with that, since our last meeting, we met with the union leadership, along with drivers, dispatchers, all of our unionized employees, to do a roundtable about their concerns as it relates to safety, be it on the training side, be it on the DOT side, and we're developing plans to address those concerns. So we've had meetings about safety as it relates to safety of our employees, and we take it very seriously. Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions? Go ahead, Councilwoman Park.
Teamsters, thank you for that list of issues. Sorry for Teamsters. Thank you for that list of issues. The ongoing concerns about lack of training, we've heard that repeatedly over the course of many meetings, not just on this issue, but on others. The radio's not working and the panic button's doing nothing. I have questions about the plexiglass, right? We've all been patting ourselves on the back, acting like that's something useful. I'm curious how our drivers feel about it. Do they think it's adequate? Do you feel safe?
No. Can I just, council member, note that the plexiglass was put in place initially in response to COVID. So it was not intended to address the type of issues we're facing now. And so adding to that, exploring how we can enhance that barrier to better improve the safety of our drivers. But just, I think it's important to note that the initial response was for COVID.
Okay, well, thank you for that. We've just been recently touting it as an additional safety measure, and I'm not convinced that it does anything one way or another. As we have dived into these cases, what we have found often is that the folks involved in these violent attacks have acted out before. So do we have any policies or strategies in place to keep them off of our buses? If a driver has known history of interactions with someone, do they have any authority or empowerment to tell that person to get off the bus?
As I understand transit law, absolutely. If they're acting as an agent of the carrier, then if they find that the individual has been disruptive in the past, it depends on the policy of the agency. But on LA Metro side, any employee of LA Metro is authorized to expel somebody from the system for behavior and or for previous knowledge of behavior of that sort. There's also a mechanism at LA Metro to temporarily and permanently ban individuals who continue to display bad behavior on that. And the police department, as well as LASD and Long Beach Police, work with the Metro courts to refer cases where behavior has continuously become a problem. As was mentioned in a recent LA Metro meeting, when there is a legal decision to bar, either as a result of a conviction or a restraining order, there isn't a forward-facing mechanism to put that information out to agencies. That information is uploaded by the district attorney's office or the city attorney's office into a system that can be accessed when an individual is detained by law enforcement. So, for instance, if we stop an individual for another violation and we run that individual's name on the air for what we call wants and warrants, the restraining order system is accessed by that wants and warrants run, and if that person has a stay-away order or an active restraining order, then that information will be brought to the attention of the officers, and the officers can take the appropriate action for violation of restraining order at that point. Usually when our detectives become aware of someone who is continuously violent on the system, we'll put out a BOLO, so it would be a public-facing alert, so LAPD or the sheriffs or Long Beach will initiate that to go out, and we have a law enforcement sensitive version, and then a non-law enforcement sensitive version that we share with our operating partners. All of those mechanisms can be built for our relationship with DOT and with MV, but currently that mechanism doesn't exist to my awareness.
So all that
from
stuff,
a law enforcement side, all that stuff is LA Metro.
so all those things we're doing on Metro, we are not doing for our own transit assets internally at DOT?
As they don't have a police department that's specifically contracted to them.
So I heard,
no.
I think it was you that said that LAPD used to provide services on buses until 2021. What happened in 2021? Why did we stop doing that?
I was contacted by DOT when I was the commander over Transit Services Group, and we were told that at the direction of the council that the contracting services with the LAPD were to stop immediately until an ambassador program similar to the one that LA Metro was exploring at the time was brought on board. That was 2021, and that was the last that we had heard about.
Has that been,
yeah,
have ambassadors been brought on board? Have we done anything
ambassador
since?
program?
We do not have an ambassador program. What we have been discussing is different avenues to either re-engage and reinitiate that contract with LAPD, bring on an ambassador type program, or have a separate third-party security system in place. And those are just conversations we've been having internally about what path to take.
So I've talked to a lot of bus drivers recently, and one of the things that I have heard from them is that they see a lot of the same folks over and over again. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're actually afraid to speak up and don't want to pursue charges or do anything when someone's being aggressive or threatening or harassing with them. In part because they don't necessarily want to have the route reassigned, which is one of the interventions or strategies that can be used if someone's not comfortable on the route they're driving, or because they're afraid of the person that gets on the bus and acts up. So do we have any kind of a system in place for a driver who has those concerns to talk to somebody about it and get some kind of a resolution so that they can go out and do their route and move people around the city without the fear or reality of being attacked or assaulted?
I'll defer to MV to address what their internal process is like.
Right.
Well, we do have our operators who would provide an incident report if there's an individual that they're concerned about. One of the challenges with the public is on transportation, we don't have records of who they are, what their names are. We're not picking them up from a particular address. They just get on the bus and get off. So we part of the training in terms of customer service and de-escalation is what we lean on to avoid any type of confrontation with an with a passenger you think that might be volatile. If they're under the influence, you can call to get support from a supervisor or call the police. But we, when a driver thinks there's a potential issue with a passenger, we defer to our customer service and de-escalation if in the event something would occur.
I have a question about the call statement you made, because I just heard earlier that the radios don't work. So what are they using to make a call?
Once again, the issue of if in fact a radio goes out while they're en route or in the field, then generally I know some operators will use their cell phones to call the office, but I'm not aware of this being a major issue of radios, buses going out into the public and radios are being inoperable in the service. That's something that I will need to drill down with my general managers at the sites to address that issue.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
I would like to speak on about the radios. We do perform a pre-trip, so I don't know if it's the satellite or however the frequency works, but when we do a radio check, we call in, they can hear us clearly in the yard. But when we're in Highland Park, Crenshaw, Midtown, Observatory, we have no service. They can't hear us. I can't even use my personal phone to call from the observatory because it's no service up there, even with the radio from the company or my cell phone. So a lot of different other areas you can't reach dispatch. The radio frequency, it just won't connect. I don't know if it's the distance or if it's too many people's cell phones in the area or whatever's going on, but generally they don't connect.
Thank you. Is there any Wi-Fi on our DOT?
Do those run on Wi-Fi?
I don't.
I don't know. I don't use the Wi-Fi. I'm not sure.
Anyone know?
We do. We have Wi-Fi on board our buses.
Are the radios attached to Wi-Fi? Any reason we can think of why we would be having range and coverage issues on them?
I would have to investigate that with our radio operator. But if in fact the cell phones are not inoperable as well, you're saying in observatory, those areas, I'll get the coverage. There are some, I am aware there are some areas in Los Angeles possibly where communication can be difficult, but we'll investigate that. But especially in Crenshaw, you mentioned Crenshaw and some of the lower areas, there should not be an impact. But our operator indicated, the drivers do their pre-checks in the morning. They check the radios. They do a radio check to make sure the bus is going out with an operable radio. But I'll investigate the coverage issue and get with our radio provider on that.
One final question, Madam Chair. Sure. I'm curious about the training for our drivers. We have removed our law enforcement partners from transit, and in DOT's case, I've never got around to replacing them with ambassadors or anything except plexiglass and panic buttons to nowhere. And now we're focusing on de-escalation training, and I get that. That's the emphasis. We're leading with that in a lot of different fronts. But what if the de-escalation training doesn't work? We see a lot of violent, dangerous, unstable people using public transit every day. And I feel like our riders and our operators are left out there to fend for themselves, unprotected. Radios and panic buttons and some plexiglass here and there doesn't cut it. And these situations, in my opinion, are getting worse and more violent. And I am worried about these folks out in the field. So beyond escalation training, what's the next step? If it doesn't de-escalate, what are you trained to do?
You're trained to call for help and support. I'll give you, with the last incident we did have, the PD was there within 10 minutes. So even though there's no contract with PD, they are very responsive to our calls when there is a need for support in the field. That's unfortunate, but yes.
They're not responsive to all areas. I've had issues in certain areas, and they won't come as fast as they would in Fairfax. They won't come as fast as they would in Highland Park. They won't come fast in Crenshaw and Midtown. They'll wait until we de-escalate it ourselves. So we are out there to fend for ourselves. The police response time is very poor in certain areas that we'll be driving. And I guess it's maybe dependent on the passenger, or they know, oh, it's probably another drunk or another smoker or just another homeless person. But some of these people look like you and I, and they just switch in their head and go off. They can get on the bus and just be calm and regular, and then they'll be talking to themselves, and you'll look up like it's just you and I we're talking to, and they'll just go off in a rant. They don't always fit the description with what they think they should normally look like.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing the thoughts and perspectives and insights on this. I think we have an awful lot of work to do to get this right for you and for the people who rely on our transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any questions from you, Councilmember Hernandez?
No, just a comment, Councilwoman. Just want to thank Council members Heather Hutt and Park for putting this motion forward. Bus driver and passenger safety is a top priority for us as a city. For me as well, one of my close friends is a LA DOT driver, I believe in the MacArthur Park area. And we're very much looking forward to implementing changes in order to protect folks and keep them safe from preventable harm. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone that's come to bring their best thoughts to the table. I feel like we still have more work to do. And so at this point, I'd like my fellow members to consider adopting the motion. Mr. Clerk, can you take a voice vote on the adoption of this motion?
Oh, yes. Councilmember Hutt,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
3 ayes. It's approved.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any additional business before committee today?
No, there isn't. That clears the desk.
Thank you, committee members and members of the public. This meeting is adjourned.